Alberta has been pressing for much-needed help for the energy sector for weeks now. After the already struggling industry was hard hit by a slumping demand and slumping prices and an oil price war, the COVID-19 pandemic is one more blow. Today, that help was announced in the form of a $1.7 billion package for the cleanup of orphaned and abandoned wells in Western Canada. But for Alberta, where Premier Jason Kenney is projecting 25% unemployment, will this be enough? He thanked the Prime Minister in a tweet after the PM announced this package this morning, saying this is critical in getting thousands of people in the energy sector back to work immediately. For more on this, Natural Resources Minister Seamus O'Regan joins us from, I don't know where you are, Seamus O'Regan, St. John's, I suppose. Hello, Minister. Glad you could join us. I hope you're doing well. The Prime Minister announced a $1.7 billion package for the energy sector. Cleaning the wells will create jobs. But I'm wondering, so that's a job creation program. How does this really help the energy sector?
Well, it helps in a number of ways. First of all, it allows us to retain some very important, highly skilled labor and keep them in place in an activity that cleans up the environment and is good for the industry. These are already deemed essential workers, so they're ready to go. So that's very important. And the other substantial part of this package had to do with liquidity and liquidity aimed at small to medium-sized businesses. So, you're talking really, when we think of the oil business, I think a lot of us just probably think of big companies, miles of pipeline, in my case here off of Newfoundland and Labrador, big oil rigs in the billions of dollars. When in fact a lot of it is dominated by small and medium-sized players. 85% of the jobs are in small and medium-sized businesses. So ensuring that they have the liquidity that they need to stay intact is really important. I mean, when I spoke to the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, they told me that their top three of their top five asks were liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. If you talk to labor, which I do, they'll say, look, we need to make sure that the companies are in place in order for our workers to have jobs to go back to. So that's where we were gearing things today.
But we're told that this, Minister, this will create, about 5,000 jobs, which is really a lot of jobs. When you think of the tens of thousands of jobs that are lost in this sector, I'm wondering how and with which premiers did you negotiate this package? Because the Prime Minister is telling us he's, always negotiating with premiers. So which ones did you negotiate with, and how did you come to this particular project?
Joyce, from the get-go, I have had a very good working relationship with natural resource ministers right across the country. And, certainly over these past 4 weeks, as all of us working from home, I am on the phone an awful lot with those ministers, particularly, the three oil-producing provinces, because as you said in your introduction, they were the ones who are hardest hit not only by COVID, but also by the price war that began with Saudi Arabia and Russia. So that being Sonia Savage in Alberta, Bronwyn Eyre in Saskatchewan, and Siobhan Cody in Newfoundland and Labrador. And we speak often. And in fact, going as we're trying to figure out price instability and trying to do something on that score, I mean, you had Sonia Savage, who was dealing with OPEC Plus. I was dealing with the G20. We would speak with each other before those meetings, after those meetings, to make sure that our approach was a Team Canada approach, that we were really closely coordinated in our efforts. And that's something that we've kept throughout. The same when I deal with the U.S. Energy Secretary, who I've had numerous calls with, Dan Brouillette, who knows and understands the market and how integrated the Canadian and American markets are. Beforehand, I've spoken with those energy ministers, and afterwards we speak as well. We either speak one-on-one or together. Those relationships have proven to be very, very important.
So I'm wondering, how fast can these jobs be created for these oil workers to move from, unemployment to these new jobs?
I'm told very soon. We're working with the Oil Well Association in Alberta, which is funded by the companies. In the case of Saskatchewan and British Columbia, we go through their governments. But I'm told that we can move pretty quickly on these.
I want to take you to a totally different topic, virtually sitting, the virtually sessions of Parliament. That is something that the Speaker of the House is studying now to see if you guys can do this. So you live far from Ottawa. How do you see this working for somebody such as yourself?
Well, I mean, I know that this is something that the various parties are talking to one another about, and I realize it's probably a bit of an upheaval. I mean, I just kind of, I guess, reflect like many Canadians are on their own experiences. We somehow have, a number of us anyway, have managed to be able to work quite effectively from home. And it's a bit of it's sometimes a bit disruptive, and sometimes you get into old habits. I mean, or new habits, I should say. I mean, today in the press conference, I was caught with the mute button on a couple of occasions, only because you're working from home and you have two dogs going, and they always seem to bark at just the right moments. You keep it on mute. The Deputy Prime Minister had to intervene on 2 occasions to remind me to take it off mute. Not a proud moment, but we're all kind of adapting to working from home. I think what's important, and I leave this to the government House leader and to the other parties to figure out, but it is important that we have all voices in the House of Commons where we can, and regional voices, and ones that are more further afield, like myself.
I know what you speak of, Minister. I have 2 dogs, and sometimes working from home is a challenge, especially for those of us who are technically challenged. Thanks so much for this. I wish you a very good weekend.
Joyce, thank you.